T. You know who this is. We want to welcome our viewers today in the United States and around the world to our 8th installment of We Are Not Invisible, Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder in Black America. Today's episode is probably not going to be as well polished as some of the other series that were brought in the past. I'm still not in a really good place emotionally right now, but I just woke up out of a terrible dream, and I figured I would use that horrible experience to be a motivation to come and talk to everybody about this. I've basically been out of commission for a while dealing with the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I didn't even know that I had that. But as I shared before, that I've been in therapy now for almost really about a year and a half, and I see a licensed clinical social worker as well as a clinical psychologist. And in the midst of me, going through the therapy and sharing and stuff like that, and sharing some of the things I've been going through, the clinical psychologist diagnosed me with it and told me to look into it, and I did, and we talked about it, and I'm like, wow, that makes total sense. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of give you some information about it, and then I'm going to share with you my own personal experience with it and how it's been affecting me. And again, like I say, please forgive me. This may not be as well jointed as some of the other episodes I've brought you. I've actually been on hiatus for making videos for a while, but I thought it was important to bring this to you. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and give you the symptoms and some of the situations that can cause a person to have PTSD, and then we'll kind of go on from there. So let me just talk to you about some of the risk factors for PTSD. And before I get into that, I want to say that a lot of times, in Black American communities and other communities of color, we think that, PTSD is only for military trauma, seeing people injured in the war, or seeing your buddies get hurt or worse, and all kind of things like that. But many things actually can traumatize you where you have these type of symptoms and reactions, either right away or it could be much later. Some of the things that cause PTSD are not only combat exposure, but childhood neglect and physical abuse, sexual attack, physical attack, that could be at any age, for the physical attack or sexual attack, being threatened with a weapon. You can also go through things such as a fire, a natural disaster, mugging, robbery, car accident, plane crash, torture, kidnapping, life-threatening medical diagnosis, some kind of extreme situation or other type of life-threatening events. Now I'm going to share with you this really quickly before I get into talking about it more in terms of how it's affecting me, are some of the symptoms that it can give you. And like I say again, please forgive me, this is not real well put together. Once I get through, reading this part to you, I can really talk about myself. And give me a second here. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about here. And some of the symptoms that you can get from this are intrusive memories, where you get recurrent, unwanted, distressing memories of the traumatic event. You can relive the traumatic event as if it were happening to you all over again. It's called flashbacks. You can get upsetting dreams about the traumatic event. You can get severe emotional distress or physical reactions to something that reminds you of the event. You might start sweating. Your heart might start beating really hard. You may get real nervous, like butterflies in your stomach, might throw up, get diarrhea, pass out. You may start doing avoidance type of things, trying to avoid or thinking or talking about the event that happened to you. You can start avoiding the places, activities, or people that remind you of the traumatic event. You can also start having negative changes in your thinking and mood. Symptoms of negative changes in thinking and movement include starting to have negative feelings about yourself or other people, the inability to experience positive emotions, feeling emotionally numb, having a lack of interest in activities you once enjoyed, feeling hopeless about yourself, the future, having memory problems. And it's not uncommon to start not being able to really remember everything that happened to you, not being able to connect emotionally to people and maintain friendships and relationships, personal, platonic, or family or friends, doesn't matter. You can have a lot of difficulty with that. You can start having changes in your emotional reactions, getting very irritable, angry, aggressive, having those kind of outbursts, being hypervigilant, always on guard, looking out for danger, feel overwhelmingly guilty or shameful, start having self-destructive behavior, drinking too much, driving too fast, trouble concentrating, trouble sleeping, being easily startled or frightened. And these symptoms can get worse and worse over time. So let me talk to you for a minute about basically what's been going on with me for myself. I suffered extreme psychological verbal abuse as a kid from my mother, and abuse from my father by him not being there, and it was traumatic for me, and it was so difficult for me to own this, to get, and I want to say that when you start going to therapy to deal with your issues, to start healing, it a lot of times this is not pretty. And when I'm feeling better, I'm going to do a video, and you may have seen the promo for it, psychotherapy versus life coaching. And like if you watch, for example, Iyanla Vanzant, who I love, she's a life coach, but there are a lot of aspects that are different. There's some core things that are similar, but there are a lot of aspects that are different in life coaching versus psychotherapy. And like I say, when I'm feeling better, we're going to talk about that. But what I want to say specifically, as I have been getting into the therapy, and we've been going deeper and deeper and talking about issues, all of a sudden, man, it's like we hit pay dirt, and I just begin to remember things that I had forgotten about. And it was so traumatic that my brain had kind of just not erased the memories, but buried a lot of them. So it's like sometimes your brain does it for you to protect you. After you get traumatized, a lot of times people have had the experience, and I've had the experience, it feels like when the abuse is happening to you, it's like you're outside of yourself watching it. So it's like you're actually not there, and that's your brain protecting you. And a lot of times you can't remember everything, but as we've been going through the therapy, I just started remembering, and it started hurting so bad because I began to remember a lot of specific details. But see, when you can get to the core of that and begin to own it and let that pain come up and sit in that and express it and let it out and come to terms with it, that's where you can find the healing. And man, to live in pain for years is terrible, but to live in subconscious pain is even worse. And that's what I lived in for years and years. And so as we've been going through the therapy, things have been coming up, and I found myself having nightmares over and over, waking up almost every night out of a terrible nightmare, and not being able to connect with people, and feeling lost inside, basically feeling dead. No emotions toward doing a lot of things that are like just feel like a zombie walking around, feeling bad about myself, feeling just disconnected from everything, everybody, myself, not able to recognize me, trying not to think about what happened, trying not to remember it, getting almost sick thinking about it, and then when these flashbacks come, it's like it's actually happening over and over, and I mean, it's terrible, and then you just begin to feel so hopeless, like it will never get better and you'll never get out, of these type of feelings. And it just goes on. Mine, when it started, it's been going for the last 2.5, 3 months, and the depression that comes with it is sickening. It just feels like you're suffocating and you're drowning. I just didn't have any energy to do anything, and I haven't. I know some. If you watch some other videos, I know you've been seeing me active on the posts and making comments or whatever, but I really haven't been in a good place for a long time now. Not really taking the best care of myself. It's taking everything just to do basics, and really, I'm just isolated. I basically see people when I go to group, or when I see my therapist, or if I go to the gym, or something like that. But it just totally just takes a part of you away, and it feels like that you can never get out of it. And I'm sure there are other things that I could tell you about, like being afraid all the time. I always feel like a lot of anxiety, so it's like never being able to feel comfortable, feeling like something always bad is going to happen to you. And like I say, my abuse was not only verbal and emotional, but also sexual abuse. I got abused sexually terribly from like age 16 to my early 20s, and being mentally disabled, that really helped set me up. And then my father not being around to protect me, and my mother abusing me, I didn't have anyone to go to talk to about these things. So, and then later I wound up running into other family members who also took advantage of me in very terrible ways. So it's like my life has been a series of tragedies. There's been some good spots, not many, but it's like I've forgotten about so many of the things. And even as we've been going through the therapy, there's a lot of stuff that I'm finding. I'm remembering things. However, there's still patches of stuff that I can't remember. It's just gone. I don't know if they have to give me hypnosis or whatever, to bring those things up. And then sometimes it can feel so bad, or it has felt so bad for me, that I just thought about ending it. I don't, feel like that right now, but, I have had those moments with this. And the best thing to do is to keep going to therapy, keep talking about dealing with. Some people, medication helps, but I believe they say, there are different types of therapy, DBT and other forms, because they're, more than one type of therapy, and medication doesn't work for everybody. And I'm one of those persons that just can't tolerate, the medication side of therapy. But it's just so many different things that can happen when you have PTSD. It's like I get easily startled. It's not hard for somebody to walk behind just scare the living shit out of me almost. If an alarm goes off or a horn beeps, I almost jump out of my skin because I think it's happening all over again. And just feeling numb, feeling nothing. And I'm sorry if this video's a little bit of a ramble or if it's disjointed, but I just wanted to really connect with other people out there in case you're going with this, or maybe you can identify with some of these symptoms that I've told you that I'm having. Like say I've had a lot of problems with sleep, like especially the last few months. I'll sleep a few hours, then I'll wake up in the middle of the night, sit up most of the night, and then fall back asleep again. And then it's exhausting because then when you do get up, half the day is gone or whatever. So it's just, it can be really difficult, even having problems with concentration. like watching an entire movie. I love movies. I love to read. I have been able to do a lot of that or whatever. Just feeling really bad and ashamed of yourself. And what I want to say about the feeling ashamed part is, it's not your fault. It's not our fault that these things happen to us. Whether you got raped, beat up, threatened, injured, verbally assaulted, you went through a tragedy, a natural disaster, you know, this can also happen to you if you witness it. It doesn't necessarily have to be you that went through it, but you could have witnessed a family member, or you could have loved someone that went through it, and then it affects you greatly that way. But it's, you know, and then for some people, they get really angry or have outbursts. I've been more irritable, but not angry or nothing violent, nothing like that at all. But I mean, there's just so many, different experiences that you can have with this. And just, you know, another thing I've had is just feeling negative, you know, about a lot of things. So, but the thing is to do your work. You know, if you find that you're dealing with these symptoms and you're having trouble with the things that I've listed, go talk to, you know, a mental health professional. Make an appointment and go talk to somebody and start therapy, because to walk around with pain like this, it will put you out. You cannot continue to do it. And I also need to say that, you know, somebody might say, well, you know what I mean, well, it sounded like before you started the therapy, you weren't doing this bad. But what it was, I was living with all this unconscious pain on the inside, and it was eating me. And I can look back and see all of the unconscious behaviors I had in the past, and I was living out of pain and not really realizing, you know, that I needed to be healed. And so even though this is really difficult right now, and my therapist, both of them told me, you know, this is going to be a while, so you got to be patient, you know, and you may have to take breaks in the therapy as you're dealing with issues and stop and come back and talk about another subject. But I'm determined to come out on the other side of this all right, and I want you to do the same. Black people do have periods where we can experience problems with mental illness, and it could be any kind. It could be PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, addictions, whatever it is. I want you to know that you're not out there by yourself. You know, we're here as a community, we're dealing with it, and just reach out and do what you got to do to be better. You know what I'm saying? Find somebody you can talk to outside even the professional circles. If you got to, you know, we have a new community, mental illness in Black America, that you can join and talk and vlog and ask your questions and read stories about, you know, people, even celebrities that deal with mental illness. You know, it's just so much, you know. But you know, the thing is, you have to do your work if you want to be better. And so I'm gonna keep you posted. And again, forgive me that this video wasn't the most conjoined or whatever, but it was difficult, and I'm still breathing. Live and love me, gente. Te quiero. Just woke up out of a terrible dream, and I figured I would use that horrible experience to be a motivation to come and talk to everybody about this. I've basically been out of commission for a while, dealing with the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I didn't even know that I had that. But as I shared before, that I've been in therapy now for almost really about a year and a half, and I see a licensed clinical social worker as well as a clinical psychologist. And in the midst of me, you know, going through the therapy and sharing and stuff like that, and sharing some of the things I've been going through, the clinical psychologist diagnosed me with it and told me to look into it, and I did, and we talked about it, and I'm like, wow, that makes total sense. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just kind of give you some information about it, and then I'm gonna share with you my own personal experience with it and how it's been affecting me. And again, like I say, post-traumatic stress disorder in Black America. Today's episode is probably not going to be as well polished as some of the other series that were brought in the past. I'm still not in a really good place emotionally right now, but I Oye, mi gente, you know who this is. We want to welcome our viewers today in the United States and around the world to our 8th installment of We Are Not Invisible,